Okay, this is the Dove Lady, and I have finally acquired something to hold my cell phone so that I don't have to hold it. And so I'm going to set this going and read to you a little from the book, The Light Shall Set You Free by Norma Milanovich. And I'm just going to start right here, kind of in the middle. Throughout their many transmissions, the Ascended Masters continually refer to the fifth dimension. They state that we are moving from the third through the fourth and into the fifth dimension, as the earth moves with the precession of the equinoxes, out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. They also say that the world will change in a twinkling of an eye, and that some of us will change with it. What does it mean that the earth is entering the fifth dimension? What is the fifth dimension? How will the world change? If and when it does, will we be changed? In order to understand the answers to these questions, one must first acquire an understanding of the world from a different perspective. To comprehend the fifth dimension, one must first understand that everything in the universe is energy and can be measured and reduced to vibratory frequency, the number of vibrations per second emitted by an object or experience. The term everything includes mental, emotional, physical, and even spiritual things. Every particle, thought, word, object, experience, or emotion has its own vibrational frequency, and that vibration can be measured mathematically. We exist in the third dimension, although there are other dimensions of time and space as well, such as the fourth and fifth, which will be discussed later. Each dimension in the universe contains 7 levels, or major vibrational frequencies. And these 7 levels, or major vibrational frequencies, constitute a curriculum for that dimension. When the soul chooses to live in a dimension, it must master the curriculum of that dimension before it is allowed to exit that reality and evolve. For example, the curriculum for the third dimension is love and light. The way that this is accomplished is by studying the white light and its 7 colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, and understanding that light is the source of all creation and power. Since light comprises the energy field in which we live, and we are not separate from this energy field, then the light is within us. Since the human body is an energy system, microcosm, containing all aspects of the universe, macrocosm, these same 7 colors are found within us in the form of our chakras, and each chakra represents one of the 7 colors contained in white light. This was discussed in the previous chapter. It also is known that each color has a psychological and emotional agenda. Red stands for our physical needs and our ability to ground ourselves. Orange governs our relationships and sexuality. Green aids in healing and giving love. To attain mastery, we eventually must control our emotional and mental bodies and achieve command over the agendas associated with the chakras. Physicists can measure the vibration of these 7 colors and have discovered that they each vibrate to distinct frequencies related to the 7 major notes on the musical scale. Thus, the frequency or number of vibrations per second at which a note vibrates can be translated into a color. Red vibrates at the lower end of the spectrum, and violet at the higher end. Each of the 7 levels within a dimension has a vibrational range unique to that level, and each of these individual levels can be subdivided further into 7 divisions. Lower dimensions vibrate at lower frequencies. Higher dimensions vibrate at higher frequencies. All dimensions comprise consciousness, and they all exist simultaneously. The ascended masters vibrate at a level much higher than we do. Although we exist simultaneously with them, most of us cannot see them, even though they can see us. Those who can see them only with the inner eye, called the third eye. Another example of something that vibrates at a higher frequency is ultraviolet light, which resides on the border between the 3rd and 4th dimensions. With instrumentation, we can measure this higher frequency and therefore know that it exists, even though we cannot see it with our naked eyes. This light always has been a part of our reality, yet we did not know this until we developed the technology to measure it. The second concept that is important to understand is that all dimensions within the universe exist simultaneously. All that is or ever will be exists now, in this moment of time. However, we are limited by our consciousness as to how much of this existence we can perceive and comprehend. The higher our consciousness, the higher our vibrational rate, the more we can see into other dimensions. While the above statement is true, it is also difficult for most people to understand. In the past, only minds like Einstein could comprehend exactly what simultaneous existence means. Today, with our scientific discoveries and increasing technological information, humanity slowly is acquiring the capability to understand these advanced concepts. Before attempting to explain these concepts further, it may be helpful to explain the various dimensions. The first dimension. The first dimension sometimes is called the mineral kingdom. Its frequency range is measured on a scale of from 7, and it is from 1 through 7, and it is the dimension where the life force energies begin to flow. Consciousness exists in the atom, and in this dimension, consciousness is experienced through the laws of magnetism, gravity, and chemical properties. This is the dimension of solidification of thought forms experienced through the lowest form of vibration known to our existence. The second dimension. The second dimension is known as the plant kingdom, comprises the next harmonic range of 8 through 14 frequencies. Life exists here, and the kingdom represents itself following perfect patterns in nature. Notice that plants need light to sustain life, but the mineral kingdom does not. It is the mineral kingdom that provides the precious nutrients needed to sustain life in the plant kingdom. It is the sun that provides the photons to be converted in the plants through the process of photosynthesis. The third dimension is the animal kingdom, of which humans are a part. This dimension exists within the next band of frequencies ranging from 15 through 21. Within the animal kingdom, consciousness is very complex, ranging from the very simple to the capacity of humans. As animals evolve to a higher state, they acquire higher levels of reactive behaviors. The human kingdom, which functions at the top of the animal kingdom's scale, exist interactively with the lower dimensions. Innate intelligence appears to set humans apart from the rest of creation. The third dimension adds the measurement of depth to the flat measurements of length and width. It is this quality that supports the physical world around us. The third dimension also is dominated by a carbon-based material existence. The formula for carbon is C6H6O6. The celestial beings point out that the number 666, emanating from this formula, was referred to as the sign of the beast in the book of Revelation in the Bible. The third dimension is ruled by our five senses of taste, sight, smell, hearing, and touch, all connected with the physical world around us. When we lose ourselves in the world of matter, we also can lose touch with our souls and the light of the higher dimensions. Since all is energy, the third dimension often is referred to as solidified thought. That was that which constitutes the Maya, or illusion, around us. Everything seems real because things have physical appearance, length, width, and depth. But everything actually is energy when viewed from a higher perspective. The density of matter makes things move in slow motion or at a slower vibration, often causing people to perceive reality as consisting of limitations because it takes so much effort to create within this density. Because of this slow motion, individuals have difficulty comprehending the power of mind and the way in which it rules thoughts to manifest form. A sense of duality rules the third dimension, so individuals look for black and white answers to questions. They encounter pain, suffering, and emotional challenges while experiencing life on this plane. These experiences drive the individual to accrue good and bad karma, an unfinished business that must be addressed later on. As the soul begins to experience enlightenment and acquires a higher consciousness, issues no longer are perceived as yes or no, black or white. Instead, each event begins to take on new meaning and is analyzed in the context in which it exists. This is a sign that the soul is beginning to evolve out of the illusion of the third dimension. Gautama Buddha, upon attaining enlightenment, taught about the conditions that make up the third dimension. He said that all is impermanent and part of a flowing existence. Individuals get caught in a cycle of life and death because any incomplete deed or unfinished business in one lifetime projects toward a new incarnation. Life is subject to misery and suffering, and especially to sickness and death. Out of this teaching, Buddha defines his four noble truths. These are: number one, existence includes conflict, dissatisfaction, sorrow, and suffering. Number two, there is purpose for all suffering, which is caused by selfish desire. Number three, we can be emancipated from this suffering. Number four, freedom from suffering is obtained by following the Eightfold Path. Buddha's Eightfold Path, to escape the cycle of rebirth and suffering, requires a higher and more ethical code of behavior than most individuals practice today. This path includes constant introspection and a correct or true way of living. It is expressed as right seeing, right thought, right speech, right action, right living, right endeavor, right mindedness, and right concentration. Following this path leads an individual to freedom and the ability to transcend third-dimensional reality, because these principles are also inherent in the universal laws. It is apparent that the wisdom of the Buddha was far ahead of its time, and it still has not been realized on Earth. All humans have the natural ability to perceive dimensions higher than the third, although few ever have understood that they could. In Atlantis, humans, in embodiment, accepted this mode of operation and perception as normal behavior. The Atlanteans operated on this superior level of existence, connected to their higher selves. With the fall of Atlantis, humanity experienced a struggle for survival and became aware of the lower self, dominated by the will of the ego. Now, after thousands of years of evolution, most people have forgotten not only how to connect with higher dimensions, but also that it is even possible to do so. Psychics and mystics have long been known for their abilities to transcend other realities and dimensions. An individual whose consciousness was not attuned to this ability often feared those individuals who could transcend other dimensions. The fourth dimension. The fourth dimension exists in the range of frequencies from 22 through 28. This dimension often is called the astral plane and is the residence of some disembodied souls until they can be fully transformed and integrated into the higher planes of existence. It is also the transition between the physical world and the higher worlds of the celestials. It is a challenging dimension It is a challenging dimension presently hosting the Battle of Armageddon, or the fight to transcend forces of opposition and transmute all into the light. Until Earth moves through this dimension on its path through the procession of the equinoxes and gets firmly anchored in the fifth dimension, people everywhere will be challenged by these unseen forces. Scientists add the variable of time to those of length, width, and depth when defining the fourth dimension. Time is an extension into the past and future and is defined as being dependent upon matter. In his theory of relativity, Einstein often referred to time itself as the fourth dimension. His system requires 4 coordinates for determining a location within space. He also refers to this dimension as a time-space continuum because these 2 components, time and space, are not absolutes. They relate only to an individual's movement through space. Time serves to help us awaken our memories of who and what we are. In dimensions higher than the third dimension, we can traverse time, moving back into past lives and then forward into the future. In other words, we can return again and again in a cyclical pattern through the totality of our existence. This process comprises a spiral which goes upward and onward in a never-ending path. Spirals are circular patterns with the dimension of time added. Life evolves in a spiral motion through all the dimensions, beginning with the mineral kingdom and moving on to the higher dimensions. The lower kingdoms support and sustain the higher ones, allowing a never-ending path of evolution. The Arcturians, the fifth-dimensional beings who assisted in writing the book We the Arcturians, add still another explanation of the fourth dimension by portraying this dimension as the vibration that begins to open the heart. It is an etheric dimension, they say, that acts as a portal, providing a pathway to higher worlds. This is accomplished through vibrations that resonate higher than the physical, dense world of matter. This is a dimension that demands that we learn to forgive before we are allowed to exit from its frequency. The higher vibrations of the fourth dimension provides us with experiences, a new curriculum, if you will, that require us to choose lifestyles and behaviors that may be considerably different from those which we exhibited in the past. The sense of duality is still present in this dimension, and individuals transiting through the fourth dimension continue to see things as good-evil, male-female, and light-dark, all carryovers from the third dimension. Upon entering fourth dimensional consciousness, however, individuals strive to work through their personal stuff and often work endlessly to solve problems related to duality. This is a dimension that must be experienced in order to achieve higher consciousness. Slowly, the understanding of oneness, the curriculum of the fifth dimension, begins to creep into one's consciousness. Because of this new knowledge and increased light, solutions to problems become more evident. This new state of higher consciousness leads to a hunger for more knowledge, requiring that an individual either choose the higher concepts of truth and enlightenment or return to the third dimensional realities of duality, rebirth, and suffering. This is a difficult decision for most people because choosing higher consciousness and realities requires the individual to change. In another transmission, the Arcturian said that one of the reasons that Jesus incarnated 2,000 years ago was to open this fourth dimensional portal. He did this through his teachings of love and forgiveness, which opened the heart to higher consciousness. By demonstrating greater love than we experience in the physical, an individual moves through time-space into a state of higher consciousness. This form of love embraces an attitude toward oneself and humanity that eliminates judgment and eventually guides the person to follow higher truths and wisdom, such as the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Humanity has been given 2,000 years of incarnation to learn these simple lessons. One wonders what percentage of souls have really mastered them. As we enter the fifth dimension, the frequency range of 29 through 35, we have access to a broader spectrum of colors and sounds. Thus, a higher curriculum of opportunities awaits. The fifth dimension is a higher frequency of spiritual evolution that we enter after our light bodies, or higher selves, merge with our physical energy bodies. This merging will occur once the lower 8 bodies are purified. Fear and negativity are no longer present, and the individual has control over the mental and emotional bodies. The human form that results will resemble the present physical form and will be a refinement of it, but will be transformed into a higher form of God consciousness. At present, humans constitute a limited form of intelligence, operating within a narrow spectrum of consciousness. We exist to learn lessons that are part of that spectrum of creation. Time exists only within the consciousness of each individual. As individuals acquire higher consciousness, a higher vibrational frequency, they experience the discarding of the old constraints related to time and move into alternative realities that are accessed through universal mind and the thought forms of higher evolutionary beings of light. The Ascended Masters call the fifth dimension the dimension of mind and thought manifestation. This dimension supports creation and will constitute the means to bring heaven on earth in the seventh golden age. The frequencies of the fifth dimension are higher than those of the physical, dense world of earth. In fact, they can vibrate beyond the speed of light, a concept hardly understood today. Thus, manifestation and creation are the conscious experience of the inhabitants of this dimension. It is here where the heart, attuned with the mind of the higher self rules. The Pleiades, Arcturus, and Sirius are examples of star systems existing within this dimension. One of the most accurate ways to describe the fifth dimension is to say that it is a metaphysical world. Metaphysics is defined as essential reality based on abstract and subtle reasoning. It encompasses reality that stretches beyond the physical or material world to incorporate the transcendental and supernatural. The science of metaphysics is founded on some of the principles of physics that describe our existence as based in energy. Metaphysics also is closely related to epistemology, or the study of the nature of knowledge. Most of the teachings of the celestial beings residing on the fifth dimension and higher are concerned with processes. They emphasize the process of evolution and the process of moving into a higher consciousness, all dependent upon our managing our own energy, mind, and hearts. Although little is understood about dimensions higher than those defined above, a brief description of the sixth and seventh dimension is included here because these dimensions are the home of higher celestial beings, such as the Ascended Masters. I won't be reading the sixth and seventh, but if you want to read this for yourself, I will include the playlist for my reading of this book, The Light Shall Set You Free by Norma Balanovich, in the description bar, because this is about to check off any minute here, any second. And as usual, it does it right in the middle of a sentence, so I'm going to stop that from happening by ending it myself. This is the Dove Lady. I hope you enjoyed this. Over and out for now.